Pnawn da bawb, a chroeso i sesiynau a adolygu Carlam Cymru. Bydd sesiwn heddi yn canolbwyntio ar Ffrangeg lefel A a'r ofynion gramadeg A2, ac yn cael ei gyflwyno gan Alison Pritchard o Ysgol Gymraeg Bro Dir. Bydd y sesiwn yn para tua 45 munud, lle bydd yr athrawes yn cyflwyno'r cynnwys perthnasol. Os oes gennych chi unrhyw gwestiynau yn ystod y sesiwn, defnyddiwch yr adran cwestiwn ac ateb, Q&A, ac fe wnawn ein gorau i ateb eich cwestiynau. Bydd sesiwn heddi yn cael ei recordio, a bydd y recordiad ac unrhyw adnoddau perthnasol yn cael ei rhoi ar wefan e-sgol o dan y tab Carlam Cymru. Diolch yn fawr. Hello everybody and welcome to the Carlam Cymru revision sessions. The session this evening will focus on A-level French, on WJC A2 grammar requirements, and will be presented by Alison Pritchard from Ysgol Gymraeg Bro Dir. The session will last around 45 minutes, where the teacher will run through the relevant content. If you have any questions during the session, please use the Q&A section and we'll do our best to answer your questions. Today's session will be recorded, and the recording and any relevant resources will be uploaded to the e-sgol website under the Carlam Cymru tab. Thank you. Draw to chi, over to you.
Diolch Kerry, thank you very much. Bonjour, bonsoir alors. Et ce soir, on va réviser la grammaire française et je vais expliquer les exigences du WJC Quebec. So heno byddai'n esbonio y gofynion Quebec, or this evening I'm going to be explaining the requirements of the A-level grammar that you need to do for the exams. Donc bonjour, et je m'appelle Madame Pritchard. L'objectif ce soir, c'est expliquer les exigences du grammaire WJC Quebec pour le niveau A en français. Donc, so, dwi wedi just edrych yn y maneldeb, so I've looked at the specification for AS and A-level French, so uwch gyfrannol a safon uwch Ffrangeg, and I've just put a list together, so dwi wedi creu rhestr o beth dych chi'n gorfod dysgu, of what you need to learn, and then you can use this information to fill in any gaps that you have. So, os mae rhywbeth dych chi ddim yn cofio, dych chi ddim yn deall, dych chi ddim wedi dysgu, then you can look at what you don't know, what you don't understand, what you haven't yet learnt, and go away and do some research before the exams. Okay, so this just comes from the specification. So, bydd disgwyl I ddysgwyr fod wedi astudio'r system gramadeg a strwythur iaith yn ystod eu cwrs. So French learners are expected to have studied the grammatical system and structures of the language. And you will, obviously, they will expect you to know the grammar that you studied at GCSE. So bydd rhaid I chi adolygu hefyd beth dych chi wedi dysgu ar gyfer tygau. Okay. And it just says that there are some examples, so mae enghreifftiau, ac os ydych chi'n gweld y G, neu o R and R in English, receptive knowledge only is required, so gwybodaeth o feddwl yn unig sydd ei hangen. OK, qu'est-ce qu'il faut apprendre alors? So, I ddechrau, mae pethau eithaf syml, quite simple things to start with. Now, you may feel some of these things, they're extremely obvious and you know them. So, falle ydych chi'n credu maen nhw'n really hawdd, really syml, a does dim angen adolygu. Ond maen nhw dal yn bwysig, but they are still important and you will still need to make sure that you're aware of them. So, I ddechrau gyda enwau, nouns, a obviously, bydd rhaid I chi deall cenedl, gender, ffurfiau unigol a lluosog, singular and plural forms. And dwi'n siŵr ydych chi wedi gwneud y gwaith yma yn blwyddyn 7. So I'm sure you did this work a long time ago in year 7. Ond mae'n bwysig I adolygu weithiau. So I think it's sometimes good to have a little bit of revision. So these pictures here just give you an idea of some of the endings that are masculine or the endings that are feminine of certain nouns. So maen nhw'n just dangos terfyniadau o'r enwau fenywaidd a benywaidd. So I'm not saying that I'm going to explain every single grammatical point. I'm just going to mention them. And then if there's something you feel you need more work on, you can go away and do it. Maybe make a little note of any of the things that you're not sure of, okay? So dwi wedi defnyddio llawer o lluniau. I've used quite a few pictures as we go along, just to make it quick and simple. So there's a little bit of information here about genders. So mae mwy o fanylion yma o ran pa enwau yn menywaidd neu fenywaidd. So mae enghreifftiau yma, so ydych chi'n gallu edrych at y diwedd. So la situation, par exemple, y sefyllfa, the situation yw benywaidd, mae'n feminine. Ond le chameau a-u, y camel, the camel, gwrawaidd, so masculine. So weithiau ydych chi'n gallu defnyddio'r endings I helpu chi gweithio mas os mae'r gair yw benywaidd neu gwrawaidd. So sometimes you can use these endings to work out whether the noun is masculine or feminine. Articles y fanod, so pendant, amhendant a chyfrannol. Definite articles, indefinite articles and partitive articles. So again, we've just got some pictures. So definite articles is the. So it's a definite thing. So le, la, l'apostrophe et les. So mae hwnna yn pendant. Amhendant, indefinite. Mae'n fel a yn Saesneg. So a in English, a dog, a cat. Ni ddim yn defnyddio fe yn Gymraeg, ni just dweud cath neu ci. And again, we have an et une. De, sy'n lluosog. So de is a plural article. And as well for the partitive articles, you probably have seen a lot in your time, the du, de la, de l'apostrophe et des. Il y a des exemples du fromage, de la glace, de l'eau et des lasagnes. Okay. And there's just a little bit more information there. There's the indefinite and definite articles. Okay, and then, rheolau allweddol ar gyfer ysgrifennu enwau lluosog. So, fel arfer, ydych chi'n just adio s, so usually we'll just add an s to the noun to make it plural. Ond, os mae'r gair yn gorffen gyda a-il o a-l, mae newid I a-u-x. So if the noun ends in a-i-l or a-l, the ending becomes a-u-x. So le cheval, les chevaux. And then words ending in s stays the same. So le joue, les jeux. And for words ending in eu or eau, we add an x. So le bateau, the boat, y llong, becomes les bateaux gyda x ar y diwedd. Okay? So because le bateau becomes les bateaux. Ansoddeiriau, adjectives. Now, hopefully by now you've got quite a broad range of adjectives in your repertoire. So gobeithio nawr ydych chi wedi dysgu amrywiaeth o ansoddeiriau I defnyddio yn yr arholiadau. Ond weithiau mae'n bwysig I adolygu'r rheolau eto. Fel arfer, mae rhan fwyaf o'r ansoddeiriau yn mynd ar ôl yr enw. So usually the adjectives would go after the noun. Per exemple, un chien noir, a black dog, ci di. Ond mae'n bwysig I dysgu nhw rhain sy'n mynd cyns, but it's also important to learn the adjectives that go before the noun, such as grand, petit, bon, etc. Okay, so you'll have to learn the ones that go before the noun as well. And remember that some of them have different endings. Fel arfer, ydych chi'n just adio usually you can just add an e, but there are quite a few exceptions, so it's important to learn the irregular endings as well. OK, so o ran ansoddeiriau, bydd rhaid i chi meddwl am cytundeb, safle, cymharol ac eithaf, defnyddio ansoddeiriau fel enwau, dangosol, amhenodol, meddiannol and gofynol ac ebechol. So, with respect to adjectives, you'll have to think about agreement, position, as I said before or after the noun, comparative and superlative, so the most, the biggest. Use of adjectives as nouns, so for example, les Anglais, the English people, as a noun. Demonstrative, so ce, cet et c'est, this. Indefinite, including autre, chaque, même, quelque. Possessive, we have mon, ma, me, ton, ta, te, son, sa, se, etc. Interrogative and exclamatory, so quel. So my esboniad yma, so there's a little explanation here, and rather than me reading through the whole slide, I suggest that if you are not watching this PowerPoint live, if you've downloaded it, I would pause and have a good look. And if you want to take any notes, then you can. It may be too simple at this point, but I'm sure as we go through the PowerPoints, there will be parts where you'll feel you need to pause and do a little bit more research or take some notes. Okay, rhifolion, numerals. Rhifau prifol, cardinal fel 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Rhifau trefnol, so ordinal numbers, premier, deuxième, troisième, quatrième. And so first, second, third, cyntaf, ail, trydydd. And mynegi amser a dyddiad, expressions of time and date. So gobeithio ydych chi yn deall y rhifau nawr. Hopefully you understand the numbers now, but if there are certain ones you need to revise, like the 70s or the 90s, etc., then make sure you do that thoroughly before the exam. So les nombres en français ou les chiffres, so dyna nhw. Ac yma ni'n cael les grands nombres, so mwy na 100. So here are the numbers in French, and we've got the bigger numbers here over 100. And obviously hefyd, dych chi'n gorfod dysgu premier, première, deuxième, troisième, quatrième, cinquième, sixième, etc. Neuvième, you see there's sillafu, there's a change of spelling for that one, and 19e. Quelle heure est-il? So obviously hefyd bydd rhaid i chi deall yr amser, dweud yr amser, defnyddio'r amser, and obviously 12 and 24-hour clock. A dyddiadau, dates hefyd, so par exemple, Wednesday, the 5th of June, dydd Mercher, 15 o Mehefin, mercredi, le 5 juin, 2001, ou mercredi 5 juin. So there's a formal and an informal way of saying it. Adferfau, adverbs. So unwaith eto mae'n ffurfio adferfau yn MENT. So fel arfer, dych chi'n defnyddio y feminine adjective gyda MENT ar y diwedd, by'n esbonio hwnna nawr. But there are obviously other adverbs that don't take mon. Cymharol ac eithaf, so comparative and superlative adjectives. Gofynol, interrogative, including combien and combien de, comment, où, pourquoi, et quand. So les adverbs. So I don't know if you can see this is a little bit small, but you take the feminine adjective to form the adverb. So it says here, ly in English added to an adjective, quickly, currently in French, add mon to the feminine form of the adjective. So, par exemple, affreux, affreuse, féminin, affreusement, awfully, yeah, ac yn y blaen. Ond hefyd, mae adverfiau wahanol. There are other adverbs, such as adverbs of time, place, manner, frequency, quantity, and interrogative. So, dyna enghreifftiau. A hefyd, jyst rhag ofn, dwi wedi creu rhestr eitha hir. I've created quite a long list here for you. If you need to take any notes, just pause and use the information. And here are some more. A lot of them will be repeated on the both slides, but I just wanted to cover all bases for you. So you go there, the superlative, le moins, le plus, etc. You've got the negative there. Okay, ac yma mae'n esbonio bod mae 3 fath o gymariaethau, comparisoners. So you can see some examples here. Again, just pause the recording and have a little look, and you can read the examples to make sure that you fully understand. So dych chi'n gallu darllen dros yr enghreifftiau I fod yn siŵr dych chi yn deall popeth. Ac unwaith eto, mae 2 fath o uwchraddol, superlatives, ac unwaith eto mae enghreifftiau. So voici des exemples ici. OK, meintiolion, cryfhawyr, quantifiers and intensifiers. Ac maen nhw'n bwysig oherwydd dych chi'n gallu rhoi mwy o gwybodaeth i'r ansoddeiriau. So ni'n cael assez, beaucoup, moins, plus, la plupart, plusieurs, presque, tant, très, tôt, etc. Okay. So dyna nhw yn Saesneg hefyd. There are a few here in English as well. And here some more explanations of what is a quantifier, if you want to have a little look, and intensifiers. I'm sure you are quite familiar with these. OK, rhagenwau, pronouns. Dwi'n siŵr now dych chi'n gwybod rhagenwau. I'm sure you know the pronouns now. So we have the singular subject pronouns and the plural. And then a little bit more information. So I've just tried to look at the list and put some images in to help us. So you will need, so there are the subject pronouns we just looked at, the je, tu, il, elle, etc. The reflexive ones, so je me douche, tu te lèves, etc. Direct object, the indirect object, and there's a little more there. Sorry, this has been cut off a little bit, but you can go in and have a look in your own time. And the disjunctive. Okay. Reflexive verbs, atblygol, just mentioned those just now. So there are the pronouns with the reflexive pronouns as well, the subject and the reflexive pronouns. And there are some examples here. So, je me lave, tu te laves. I think there's a little mistake there, sorry. Il se lave. I've just taken these pictures off the internet, but you can go and do some more research on your own if there's anything you're not sure of. OK, perthynol, relative pronouns. So gan gynnwys qui, que, dont, lequel ac ati. Auquel ac ati, ce qui, ce que. And it's possibly at this point that you may need to go away and do a little bit more work, a little bit more research, a little bit more practice if you're not quite sure. Because some of these relative pronouns can be quite tricky for French learners. I know when I was studying A-level many years ago, I had to do a little bit more research on this to fully understand it in my mind. Felly, yn fy marn I, bydd yn syniad da I gwneud tipyn bach mwy o adolygu ar perthynol, the relative pronouns, and the demonstrative pronouns as well, perhaps, just to make sure you fully understand how to use them, when to use them, and so on. Oh, there we go. OK, so indefinite, amhenodol, gan gynnwys quelqu'un, quelque chose. Tout, personne, rien, chaque, chacun, quelque chose are all examples of French indefinite pronouns and determiners. So obviously os ydych chi'n gwybod sut i defnyddio nhw, brilliant. So if you understand how to use them, fab. Os na, if you don't, just gwneud tipyn bach o adolygu. Possessive, meddiannol, le mien, la mienne, les miens, les miennes, etc. So mae dyna nhw. Et puis, mon mame, ton tate, son sase, siŵr o fod byddwch chi'n deall nhw, ond efallai bydd angen tipyn bach mwy o adolygu ar rhain. So maybe you understand the possessive adjectives, maybe you need a little bit more practice on these ones. Okay, interrogative, gofynol, gan gynnwys qui, que, quoi. So, little images here, which you can have a look at in your own time. We have auquel, duquel, and lequel. Defnydd o e, on, so the use of the e and on. So this is quite a nice little picture I found online. When to use the pronoun on or e, so you just answer the questions and you go through and it tells you which one to use. So you can have a little look at that in your own time. And also pronoun order is important. So if you have two in the same sentence, etc., then you need to know which ones you put before the other one. So there's the order there for you. And again, another little explanation of using on and e. But if you do a search online, you can find some exercises and activities to help you practice any of these things that you find tricky. Berfau, verbs. So mae llawer o gwaith ar berfau, ond so there'll be a lot of work that you'll need to do on verbs. So this just gives you a whistle-stop tour. So regular verbs in the present tense, we have er, ir, re verbs. There are some examples of chercher, réussir, and vendre. By the way, there was a session last night for AS French. So roedd sesiwn neithiwr am yr uwch gyfrannol. So ar berfau, it was an interesting session on verbs last night. So if you wanted to look at that on the AS area, perhaps that would be useful as well. And then berfau afreolaidd. So here are some irregular verbs. It's not very clear, but you can do your own research on these. The modes of address, so tu, vous, so dulliau cyfarch. So pryd I defnyddio tu, pryd I defnyddio vous, so when to use tu and vous. Welsh speakers, probably you've got a bit more idea because of the ti a chi, but for those of us who speak English, only English, then, well, I suppose you've all learnt Welsh, so you should all know the ti and the chi, when to use them. Impersonal verbs, so fel il y a, il faut, il se peut, il vaut mieux, il s'agit de, etc. So some verbs, so rhai berfau, ddim yn newid. So dych chi ddim yn gallu dweud fel il faut, ni ddim yn gallu dweud je faut, ond rydyn ni'n gallu dweud je dois, tu dois, il dois, and mae hwnna'n newid, that changes. But there are certain impersonal verbs, berfau amhersonol, sydd ddim yn newid, that don't change. So it's important that you learn those and use them accordingly. Constructions with verbs. Mae'n bwysig I dysgu y berfau sy'n dilyn gan a berfau sy'n dilyn gan de. So it's important that you learn the verbs that are followed by a and de. This image isn't extremely clear, but again, if you go online, you can find lists of the verbs that go with a and de to learn those. Dependent infinitives, berfenwau dibynnol a berfenwau perffaith and perfect. So we have avant de, après avoir, après être. So remember, these are in English. Oh yeah, here we go. Après avoir rentré au parc, j'ai rencontré à ma tante. Après être for verbs that would take être in the passé composé. And avant de dormir, so is there an avant de example here? No, there's no avant de. Avant de dormir, avant de finir mes devoirs. So you would use an infinitive with this one. Ffurfiau negyddol, ffurfiau gofynol, so negative forms and interrogative forms. So, par exemple, je ne déteste pas le français, and we have the ne jamais, ne guère, ne plus, etc. gyda enghreifftiau with examples. And question words, so où, quand, comment, pourquoi, quelle heure, qui, etc. gyda enghreifftiau with examples again. And remember my mind has gone blank. When you switch the, oh gosh, dwi ddim yn gallu cofio. When you switch the order of the words, trefn y geiriau. So, they've used SQ here. So, par exemple, ou dînes tu. So if you didn't use the SQ, remember that you have to, and I've gone blank, but switch them around, switch the order. Okay, tenses, so amserau nawr. So dyna rhestr o'r amserau. Here's a list of the tenses that they expect you to know. For the past historic, amser gorffennol, which is more for literature, they would only expect you to understand it rather than use it. So, dwi wedi ffeindio y taflen yma ar-lein, a dwi'n credu mae'n really da, cos mae'n rhoi enghraifft o pob amser dwi'n credu. Pob amser dych chi angen anyway. So this sheet here that I found online, I feel is very useful, and it gives an example of various tenses that you will need to know at A-level. And again, if you wanted to, you could print this out. You could download this and print it out. Reflexive verbs it mentioned as well. So, se réveiller, se lever, se doucher, se brosser les dents, etc. And I created these for my students on various irregular verbs. So I'm just going to show you a few as an example. So, voir, c'est un verbe irrégulier, so it's an irregular verb. Dans le présent, le passé composé, l'imparfait, le passé parfait, le futur parfait, le futur, le conditionnel, le subjonctif, le passé subjonctif, le participe présent, le participe passé, le participe parfait. So it just gives you an idea of a couple of verbs in various forms. So voir, savoir, and again, you know, we've got the subjunctive here, le subjonctif, and some people find that quite tricky. Lire, falloir. So you see here the impersonal verb, il faut, which is why there is only one example in each box, because it's an impersonal verb. Okay, use of infinitive, defnyddio'r berfenw. So the present participle, etc. So to form the present participle of regular ERI verbs, you use the no form of the present tense and replace the ONS with an ANT. So there's an example here, donnons, nous donnons. So you take off the ONS and you add the ANT. So donnons would be giving. So there's an example here, en arrivant, on arriving, and only 3 French verbs have an irregular present participle. So avoir, ayant, être, étant, and savoir, sachant. The passive voice. So the active voice would be, par exemple, les enfants ont préparé un pique-nique. So mae'r plant wedi paratoi picnic. The children have prepared a picnic. The passive voice would be un pique-nique a été préparé par les enfants. A picnic has been prepared by the children. So mae'n just bwysig dych chi'n deall Efallai bydd yn syniad da I defnyddio fe, show off a little bit. Subjunctive, y modd dibynnol, so the subjunctive mood. Again, I would say here that maybe this would be an example of where you would need to do a little bit more revision on your own. So bydd rhaid I chi edrych am pryd I defnyddio fe, when to use it. This is just an example. And how it works, so the endings, the subjunctive endings, and perhaps do a couple of examples. And to look at as well some irregular verbs in the subjunctive. So berfau afreolaidd hefyd. So again, byddwn yn eich annog I wneud mwy o waith ymchwil a adolygu ymarfer unrhyw bwyntiau gramadeg sy'n heriol I chi. So I would encourage you to do more research, revision and practice of any grammatical points that you find challenging. Arddodiaid, prepositions. So mae llawer o arddodiaid. Lots of prepositions. These are quite simple ones. Le chien est à côté de sa niche, next to, dans, in, sous, under, devant, in front of, etc. And again, I just put a couple here for you to consider. Cysyllteiriau, conjunctions, connectives. Obviously, e, u, me are the simple ones, but at A level, they would expect you to know more additional ones. So you can find plenty online. So os ydych chi'n gwneud tipyn bach o ymchwil, byddwch chi'n ffindio amrywiaeth o cysyllteiriau ar-lein. Okay, negyddu, negation. So defnyddio geiriau negyddol, fel ne pas, ne personne, ne que. So the use of negative particles and use of ne with negative subjects like personne ne vu. So ble mae person yn ddechrau gyda pwy ne a pwy y berf. A yma eto, rien ne bouge, personne ne parle. So remember those that they don't work exactly the same way as the examples here. Quote, Paulo Coelho. Personne ne perd personne parce que personne ne possède personne. C'est cela la véritable expérience de la liberté, avoir la chose la plus importante au monde sans la posséder. Very deep. So he was a Brazilian lyricist and novelist, but I just thought it was quite a nice quote. Cwestiynau, questions. So cwestiwn ni wedi gweld nhw yn barod, we've seen those already. And yes, so informally you could use subject plus verb plus question word and just use intonation. So vous venez manger quand? So your voice goes up at the end, vous venez manger quand? Or question word plus est-ce que plus subject. So you could have quand est-ce que vous venez manger? Quand est-ce que vous venez manger? So you can just put the est-ce que in and then you can keep the same order. Or without the est-ce que, informal, you would have question verb plus the subject. So quand venez-vous manger? Gorchmynion, commands. So I'm sure you've seen these when you were in year 7, but now perhaps you may need to use some commands. So it explains here about how to use them. So you can have a little look at that in your own time. Trefn geiriau, word order, inversion, that's the word I couldn't think of, sorry. Gwrthdro, inversion, ar ôl araith, after speech. Dwi'n dopsen. I'm a bit of a drip tonight. So inversion, this explains the inversion. So yn lle dweud tu as faim, you could say as-tu faim. So instead of saying est-ce que vous avez soif, you could say avez-vous soif. So they've inverted the subject and the verb. So you could do that. It's important to understand it definitely, and sometimes you will have to use it as well. Yes, some more examples there. Or les guimauns. So remember as well that speech marks look slightly different in French. So if you do use them in any written exams, remember that they change slightly in French. Que la force soit avec toi. May the force be with you. Other constructions, so cystrawennau eraill, mynegu amser gyda depuis ac il y a, so time expressions with depuis and il y a. So depuis quand, etc. Il y a 5 ans, 5 years ago. Cystrawennau cymharol, comparative constructions, and indirect speech, araith anuniongyrchol. So we have some examples here of il y a, depuis, donc, and pendant. Excuse me. Discourse markers. So dynodwyr mynegiant, au contraire, en fait. Dyma nhw yn Saesneg. I've put some in English as well, just for you to be aware of what they are, because I find sometimes that pupils don't always understand the actual terms, and as teachers, we don't always understand. We don't not always use the specific terms. So I just thought I'd give them in English first, a wedyn dyna nhw yn Ffrangeg, and here they are in Welsh. Voici les connecteurs logiques en français. So we have cause, but, classé, supposition, opposition, comparaison. Ac unwaith eto, cwbl mwy. Siŵr o fod bydd rhai yn aladrodd, some of them will be repeated. Okay, and maen nhw'n defnyddiol yn enwedig, byddai'n dweud, yn yr arholiad llafar ac ysgrifennu. But obviously you need to be aware of them because they could come up in the reading and listening, and you'd obviously have to understand them as well. Geiriau llenwi, fillers, yn enwedig am yr arholiad llafar, so alors, bon, c'est-à-dire, tu sais, bah, bon, ben, so mae llawer yma. Chi'n gallu defnyddio i swnio yn really Ffrangeg to make you sound very French. Right, so dyna'r diwedd yw'r rhestr am y uwch gyfrannol. So bydd rhaid i chi dysgu nhw, ond hefyd nawr am y safon uwch. So you will have to learn all the ones we've just seen from the AS level, plus these ones here. So yr holl gramadeg a chystrawennau a rhestr ar gyfer uwch gyfrannol a. So everything we've learned so far, plus what we're about to see now. So berfau, so they've given us a little bit more information here at A2. Dependent infinitives, fel faire, réparer, so where you have to use faire with the verb and so on. Passive voice, we saw that slightly already in all tenses, it was just in the present tense earlier. Subjunctive mode, the perfect and the imperfect tense, whereas they only expect the present tense at AS. So berfau dibynnol, ystad o ddefol, pob amser, y modd dibynnol, unwaith eto gyda amser perffaith ac amser amherffaith, nid just yr amser presennol. So mae'n enghraifft yna o faire plus infinitive, plus agent. So, je fais étudier mes enfants chaque soir. Rwy'n gwneud i'n plant astudio bob nos. I make my kids study every night, etc. Recipient only, enghreifftiau, agent and recipient, enghreifftiau. So, edrychwch drosyn nhw, look over them to make sure that you completely understand. Trefn geiriau word order again, inversion after adverbs this time, okay? So again, you can just have a little look through this in your own time. I'm just conscious of time now. Adferfau ac adroddion adverbial. So adverbs and adverbial phrases. There's just English there, and there's a list here in French with some examples here at the bottom. In a number of version is optional. So if you read through this, you can see what I mean. So after peut-être, sans doute, and the exclamative combien, you need either inversion or the word que. So, for example, peut-être avez-vous sommeil? Peut-être que vous avez sommeil. Perhaps you're tired. So you can see the both versions there. And after these three adverbs, inversion is completely optional. And again, it gives you examples there. Right, okay, so dyna diwedd y rhestr. Mae'n eitha hir, it's quite a long list. So now just I orffen, que peut-on faire pour se préparer? So beth ydyn ni'n gallu gwneud I paratoi, what can we do to prepare? Cyn bapurau, cybac a byrddau arholi eraill. I would say do lots of WJC past papers, but also if you've done them all, you could do some other exam boards like AQA, OCR, and so on, just to get the practice. They may not be exactly the same, but they'll be similar enough to help you with your French. Videos, YouTube videos, par exemple, les adverbes en français. So os mae rhywbeth dych chi ddim yn deall, dych chi ddim yn cofio, dych chi angen mwy o ymarfer, if there's anything you need more practice with or you need a bit of revision for, there are lots and lots of YouTube videos to help you. Duolingo, gwefannau, gramadeg, Ffrangeg, so French grammar websites, cyfeithiad, translation, and ymarfer, practice. That's the best thing you can do. So, os ydych chi'n mynd ar y gwefan cybac, if you go on the WJC website, you can see there's a site of resources there, and I would encourage you to use that for your revision. Felly, os ydych chi'n mynd ar y gwefan cybac, mae lle gyda llawer o adnoddau I chi, i'ch helpu chi adolygu, a bydden nhw'n really, really defnyddiol. I really, really recommend them. Les vidéos sur YouTube. Il est possible de voir vidéos sur YouTube pour améliorer la grammaire française. Il y a plusieurs vidéos différentes qu'on peut utiliser, le passé composé, les adverbes, etc. So, dych chi'n gallu defnyddio YouTube I adolygu. Les sites web de grammaire, gosh, mae yna bwcw, llawer. There are so many, and it depends on what you're revising, which one will be the best. So different websites will be better for different things. Some of them have only got an explanation, some of them have got examples, mae rhai yn cael esboniadau, mae rhai yn cael enghreifftiau, mae rhai yn cael cwestiynau gyda atebion. So some of them you can actually answer the questions, they will mark it for you online. So just ymarfer llawer ar y we. Duolingo, gobeithio mae pawb yn gwneud Duolingo. Mae Duolingo yn really defnyddiol. Il est très utile pour t'aider à améliorer en français. Il est gratuit. On peut faire une leçon ou plusieurs. So my streak now is on something like 1,009 days, I think. Dwi'n dysgu Sbaeneg, I'm learning Spanish. So yeah, I've been on Duolingo now for more than 1,000 days learning Spanish, and I'm really helpy. It really does help me. La traduction, cyfieithu unrhyw beth. Can, brawddeg, tudalen o llyfr, paragraff o rhyngroed. So translate anything you can, whether it's a song or a sentence or a page from a book, a paragraph on the internet. With me learning Spanish, beth dwi'n gwneud what I do is sometimes dwi yn y car yn gyrru, neu dwi yn y cawod, I'm in the shower, and just meddwl am rhywbeth, and say, oh, sut byddai'n dweud hwnna'n Sbaeneg nawr te? How could I say that in Spanish? A mae hwnna'n really helpu, so that could really help you, so lots of translation. Finalement, la pratique. Finally, I orffen ymarfer, practice. It's the best thing you can do. So la pratique rend parfait, practice makes perfect, and I definitely think that's the best way to learn, especially grammar. Practice. So, vous avez des questions? Os mae gennych chi cwestiynau, mae le I roi cwestiynau yn lle cwestiwn ac ateb, the question and answer section on the website. So, j'espère que vous avez appris quelque chose ce soir. Hopefully you've learned something tonight. Gobeithio ydych chi wedi dysgu rhywbeth heno, a gobeithio nawr ydych chi'n cael syniad o beth bydd rhaid i chi adolygu. Hopefully now you have more of an idea of what you're going to need to revise for your exams. Okay? Merci beaucoup et au revoir.